on, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
In the long past year of 2005, I think it was safe to say that our worlds were in danger. It's a bit hard to tell if Transformers Cybertron was a phenomenon or not. I know a lot of Transformers fans like it, but as for its popularity within the greater landscape, not so sure. I wasn't there, I can't say, I don't have the memories of it. But there is one thing you can say for certain. The toys were great. I mean, what was there to say? They were big, they were chunky, they were fun, they had the best parts of all the gimmicks from the previous toy lines, but they had articulation to back it up. We had so many classics from that era, but one thing we have to remember that it did was introduce us to the wonderful world of Legends class. Legends of Cybertron, shrunken down versions of the full-scale toys. And because the full-scale toys were so simple, it was a pretty easy thing to do. And no toys from that line are more famous than the titular Optimus Prime. In vehicle mode, this is basically a shrunken down version of the larger leader figure, with the big difference being it does not come with the backpack / trailer assembly, which of course kind of makes sense given the price point. They retailed for around 5 or 7 Aussie dollary dues back in the day, so kind of including the trailer would have been a bit silly. And I mean, I guess there's always the hybrid style version if you want the trailer, even though it's complete dog shit. Okay, not complete dog shit, but definitely a very flawed figure. We'll say they've done a fantastic job bringing this to this price point. Not all the figures made the jump pretty well, but these ones did. Rather than being shrunken down versions of the characters, back in Legends of Cybertron, the first ever proper Legends series, the progenitor to the Legend scale we know today. These are all shrunken down versions of the toys, so everything is pretty much identical to the larger version. Minus combining functionality, of course you can't really do that, which, bit of a shame, but I get it. That wouldn't become a thing until Revenge of the Fallen. Still, this guy is done very well. Of course, you don't get the lights at the front here, but most of the details are picked out. The bumper's there, no silver paint, although I think the Takara version might have some, I'll have to double check that. But the white stripe is there, and it's done very nicely, and of course the windows are painted. Actually, this entire section is painted. In fact, interestingly, there is no red plastic on this. It's entirely red paint, and that is a very difficult thing to do. You have to do it right, and a lot of toys just don't. But this is a good instance where they did do it very well, because the red is super durable. Unfortunately, that scratching came with the figure. It was on my copy when I bought it. I didn't own this as a kid, unfortunately. I got it way later, and it already had that scratch on it, but that's okay, that's okay. The side looks pretty clean. Unfortunately, the windows don't fold out to the sides like the leader version, but I'm not really expecting it on a figure this small. You know, what can you really do? The back section works about as well as you'd expect. It actually looks a bit cleaner given the size of it. Since everything's shrunken down, this whole hip assembly section that would normally be kind of out of place on the larger version, it looks alright here. You do miss a lot of the extra details like the silver, because now it's just a plain block of yellow, but yeah, what can I say? It's just a nice little version of the larger figure. And of course, they didn't stop there. We had to get redecos. For those who've joined this channel sometime this year, you'll recognize this as the Galaxy Force redeco. Not the Takara redeco, the Cybertron Galaxy Force redeco, because naming sucks. And this is a big reason as to why I criticized it so heavily. There's a big difference in the plastic coloring. Most of it's still the same. You've got all the red here, the windows are black instead of that. You've actually got silver on the outside of the fists now, which wasn't a thing on the original, which I do quite like. And of course, all 4 symbols are now done in silver instead of gold and silver, but they kind of stand out a bit more. Interesting thing, the diagonal is actually reversed when compared to the leader class version. Yeah, no, they're in the opposite direction on that one. They went this way for some reason, I don't know why. Kinda came out around the same time, but what can you do? Of course, this section here stands out a little bit more because now it's painted in silver. My guess is they just used the same paint cutouts as the original, so they just wanted to save cash. Same with the blue here, but I actually prefer this to the full-sized figure. But the big difference, and the one I will absolutely applaud, is the choice of black. You remember on the full-sized figure they chose a smoky black, whereas here it's completely pitch, which I absolutely adore. It's just a fantastic choice. The red and black pops here way more than it does on the original figure. Also, the red's a lot more vibrant as well, but it doesn't really change much. But of course, 2 redecos isn't enough, because they have to milk this to the absolute shit. And I don't mean that as an insult, it is a brilliant little Legends mold, so of course it got redecos. This is Universe 2008 Hot Zone, because apparently they didn't have the trademark for it. Painted in Hotspot's colors, with no combining functionality. Oh well, wasn't the only combiner that got a redeco from this. I mean, Menasor got it as well. Pretty much the same thing here. Basically what you'd expect, a lovely blue and red redeco of this. Of course, Hot Zone wasn't sold on his own, he was sold in a multi-pack, and I don't own any of the other figures in the multi-pack.
Yeah, I just sort of came across him on his own on Marketplace, and I'm happy to just have him. But hey, if I ever want to track down the rest of them, I can't imagine it'll be that difficult. The paint layout is the same on here, just done in black. I've actually changed the paint layout at the front, so it's now done completely in silver. Though again, there's no paint on the front whatsoever, which, it's fine. One thing I forgot to mention earlier though, these two wheels are real, but this one's actually fake. It's painted black and silver to mimic the real wheel, but actually it's just sitting off the ground a little bit so it never touches. I kinda get it, budgeting wise, it all makes sense. One thing I do find funny is that the entire kneecap is painted. Might not seem like much, but on the other two versions you can see the bottom part isn't actually. Kinda just stops there, whereas Hot Zone goes all the way. Kinda like that, I kinda like that it's a neat little feature. And I do really like this redeco. Sure, the Autobot symbol could not be lopsided there, but I guess it'll work a bit better in robot mode when it's realigned better. Interestingly, the vehicle mode windows are black, whereas the robot windows are silver, I'm guessing to mimic some of the G1 toy details. Which, you know, is a nice little feature, nice little quirks you get to appreciate with this toy. Might actually get the repro labels for this later, because I do really like this. It's a nice little novelty. Hey, Dr. Lockdown from the future here. I came to realize they weren't actually producing the set anymore, so once it sold out, that was basically it. So I took a chance and ended up ordering the Toy Hack set. And I do quite like it. The extra little details they've got in the vehicle mode are quite nice. I do find the flames on the side kind of funny because, you know, it just comes on the legs and it's just so small. But it is accurate to the G1 toy, so I get why it's there. I adore how it looks in robot mode with the extra chest details and the extra warning stripes. Might be the only hotspot I genuinely like. I've just never been that into the Protectobots. But this really does it for me. It's adorable and done really well. Good on you, Toy Hacks. I can't get my thumb in frame. But that's not the only redeco of this mold I have. You may recall in the original video I mentioned that I had a knockoff of the original, and that was my childhood copy, but I never could find it years later. Well, after moving, I eventually did find it, and oh god, my shitty paint job from when I was 10, dear gods. Yeah, 10-year-old Dr. Lockdown was pretty shit. They just spray painted gold all over it, and then put a Warhammer wash and called it a day. This is complete and utter dog shit, but it is a nice trip down memory lane. Annoyingly, the head never pushed down on this knockoff, and it was also a model kit, you had to build it yourself. But I really liked it as a kid, and I just thought I'd show it off for the rest of it. It's a very nice truck mode, and I'm very glad to have all of these today. Now, size-wise, the mold is roughly 2.2 centimeters wide, 2.5 centimeters tall, and 11 centimeters long. And for size comparisons, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, which I guess he sort of is, a standard Core Class figure, a standard modern Micromaster, a standard modern Minicon, a not-so-standard LEGO minifigure, and Crumbs. Now, being a shrunken down version of the larger toy, the transformation is basically identical. Kinda makes it a bit like the smallest transforming collection, which is something I kind of appreciate. I find it's best to bring the front section up first so you get a bit more clearance, then separate it like so. It's actually best to rotate these before you move, and there's a specific reason why. When you rotate it out that way, it means you won't scratch the wheel, which you can see on this copy of Hot Zone. It kinda has happened. It's clear the previous owner didn't really account for the clearance there. So when you bring this down first and rotate it around, then rotate it into place, doesn't end up scratching the sides. You can then bring down the shoulders however you like. Bring down the legs, bring down the waist section. There's no torso transformation here, unfortunately. Would have been nice to see, but again, this thing is f***ing tiny. And you see how poorly it was handled on the hybrid style version, so no thank you. These are on double hinges instead of the stretchy hinges. And pull up the head, probably f*** up my fingernails at the process. Ah! There we go. And, yeah, this is fantastic. It's just a smaller version of the leader class figure. None of the extra bells and whistles and weird complicated bits that just make it a chore to handle like the hybrid style version. It's just the leader class shrunken down with all the beautiful simplicity intact. Again, it's a real risky move painting all the red parts instead of using solid red plastic. And it really paid off. It makes this figure feel way more premium than it actually is. It's a sort of premium feel that you just don't get with a lot of modern Legion class figures. At least, well, not without Toy Hacks. Head sculpt is captured pretty well. It's really simplified and a bit difficult to see, but on a figure this small, it doesn't really matter. The torso is absolutely gorgeous. It's not the same shade as the original leader, but it still does it really well. Interestingly, they've missed the ab section. There's no silver paint to replicate the grey plastic, but they have done the white on the sides, and it really brings it to life. The shoulders are done really well, even though the white stripe doesn't continue all the way to the back, but that section is really tiny, so I can understand why it's difficult to paint it. So no harm, no foul. I actually really like this waist section being done in blue as opposed to being done in grey with a blue stripe down the middle. If I had to criticize one thing, the yellow is a bit wispy. It could have used another coat, but you gotta remember, yellow is a really hard color to do, and it's being done on blue plastic, a really dark color. So they've probably done a bunch of coats already. It's alright for what it is. We're not dealing with Zeta levels of bullshit here. Same thing with the kneecaps. I kind of prefer the silver of the original, but you do get the lovely silver on the thighs, which is just gorgeous. Interestingly, the thighs are really long compared to the original, but it's alright, works okay. Of course, given its small size, the back sections are really, really hollow in comparison to the original being filled in. But I mean, it's a Legends figure, what you gonna do? The only thing I could really criticize with this is the articulation, which is a bit lacking. Nothing on the heads, the shoulder flaps move up and down, but really nothing in the shoulders. Just an elbow bend, nothing else there. You have ball jointed hips that go up, but they don't really go out because they don't have the clearance on the side. The wheels don't move out like the leader class version. And they are further back, but they jut out just enough where you don't get anything. And nothing back either, so really you just get a front kick and that's it. And nothing else in the legs, that is basically it. Of course, there's basically no combining functionality, but again, $5 to $7 figure, what you gonna do? I don't actually know what the price of this figure was when it first released. I know that the 07 Legends were about $7, so I can compare that. But this might have been $5 when it first released. I don't know, I'm just guessing. Can't have been that much, and even by $10 Modern Legion standards, it's still pretty good. It's held up remarkably well. It feels very premium. It feels like they put a lot of effort into it. Not all of the Legends of Cybertron figures were done that great, but this was one of the greats. And that high quality continues with the Galaxy Force version. Again, having the darker blacks just really brings this figure to life. Also the change in balance as well. You've got a lot less red. It just really gives this figure a new vibe. And of course, again, the kneecaps look a lot better since they're done entirely in blue. It really brings it to life. And also, the thighs aren't completely black anymore. They've got the same silver as this version, which again, really, really nice. And I love the extra silver they've given the sides here with the knuckle dusters. It's just a nice little touch there. Interestingly, what they've done with the midriff is they've painted the entire thing in white, so you still do get the midriff, as well as the white stripes. I think I actually prefer it to the way this version did it, where it's just left blank. Not to say this is bad, you know, there's limitations to budget and everything, but I just feel this did that all a lot better. And Hot Zone's an interesting one. I feel he's got a really unique vibe. I don't think he's on the same level as these quality-wise, but I still really love this. Again, it's kind of funny that the vehicle windows are done in black, but the torso is done in silver, but it's a really funny quirk. It feels a bit minimalist though, because you'll see the top halves of these are all painted in red, whereas this one has sort of missed it, only just doing the torso. Again, for G1 accuracy. It means that there's a lot more blue on show, but I really do like this light blue, so I don't really think there's much to complain about. The rest is just kind of par for the course. You got black thighs instead of silver, fully painted kneecaps in comparison to just the half painted, very nice touch, and Autobot symbols that are sort of slightly at an angle so they work better in robot mode. Again, it's not something I particularly mind. Will say though, I love the red on the face. I think it's a really, really nice touch. And in case you wanted to see what the f this thing looks like in robot mode, oops, come on, you yeah, this was a mistake. But well, I was just a kid who didn't really know any better. I had fun back in the day. I might strip the paint and do a proper Fire Guts version. But for now, it's all good. Interestingly, the elbows are actually ball jointed instead of hinged like these ones. It's to save cash, but it actually makes them a lot more posable. But everything else is basically the same aside from the fact it just falls apart. Who cares? Out of the way. Anyway, size-wise, he's roughly 6.5 centimeters wide, although how you angle the shoulder pads will change that potentially, and 8 centimeters tall. And size-wise, here he is next to a standard Legion figure, which, again, he mostly is, a standard Core Class figure, a standard Modern Micromaster, a standard Modern Minicon, a not-so-standard Lego minifigure, and crumbs.
Now, is it sad that these figures don't have the backpack? Yes, but as far as $7 Legends toys, although I think there were 5 at the time, go, they were brilliant. Every version of this is fantastic. Some of the articulation is lacking by modern standards, but for the time, they were great. And they are still wonderful desk toys to this day. It's honestly shocking that back in the day, they were able to capture the essence of the leader class so simply and so effectively. But of course, years later, the hybrid style version just failed at that. Sometimes less is more, and I think Legends of Cybertron paved the way for understanding that. None of the toys were overcomplicated. They were all simple but effective, and that is the core element of Legends in a nutshell. But tomorrow we take a look at a figure that completely missed the mark on that. It's not that it's overcomplicated, it's just that they completely missed the point of what Legends is supposed to be. It's hard to determine what the best Legion Legends class figure of all time is, but excluding build quality issues where figures crumble to dust, it's pretty easy to discern the worst. See you all tomorrow!